Do we have some clarity on the Lane Kiffin situation? And do we now know, in fact, he is leaving?
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. And hey, thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast out there. I'm Gordy for a little Friday news dump edition of this show. Look, we've been tracking the Lane Kiffin thing for the last week plus. We thought we were going to get to some kind of get to a head today with the announcement that Lane Kiffin was meeting with athletic director Keith Carter. And basically, here's what we got from that meeting. We knew they met. There was all this rampant stuff going on of tracking planes. I mean, if you've delved into any LSU or Florida or Ole Miss message boards, they're a total mess. They have been all week. But here's what we got that is newsworthy on Friday afternoon. We got a statement from Keith Carter, the athletic director of Ole Miss. He put out this statement, quote, "Coach Kiffin and I had many pointed and positive conversations regarding his future at Ole Miss, including meeting today with Chancellor Boyce. While we discuss the next steps, we know we cannot lose sight of what is most important, our sixth-ranked team that is poised to finish the regular season in historic fashion. Despite the outside noise, Coach Kiffin is focused on preparing our team for the Egg Bowl, and together, we want to ensure that our players and coaches can concentrate fully on next Friday's game. This team is on the cusp of an unprecedented season, and it's imperative that they feel the support of the Ole Miss family in the week ahead. An announcement on Coach Kiffin's future is expected the Saturday following the game." This is from Keith Carter, Vice Chancellor for Intercollegiate Athletics. This is a total read between the lines. Everything that was leading up to this meeting with Lane Kiffin, from what we've been told, folks at Ole Miss, there's been an offer on Lane Kiffin's desk for weeks on a contract extension and a raise at Ole Miss. He has not signed it. In this time, we've seen multiple other coaches do this. We've seen, Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. We've seen Rhett Lashley at SMU. We've seen all these coaches sign extensions that are happy where they are, sign extensions to stay where they are. And I think most of us assumed if Lane Kiffin wanted to stay put at Ole Miss in Oxford, that meeting today with Keith Carter and the higher-ups at Ole Miss, they could have come out of that meeting with an announcement, at least to say he's staying. We're working on the framework of a raise. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even have to come out with the specifics. He doesn't even have to sign the contract, but they can at least verbally agree to a contract extension to keep him in Oxford for the foreseeable future. That did not happen. And so if you're going to read between the lines, I think he informed them. Either he informed them he's definitely leaving, or he repeatedly keeps telling them, guys, I got one more game to coach this regular season. I'll make a decision on my future when the season is over. And there were all these reports that Ole Miss was going to say, well, if you're leaving, we're not going to leave and let you coach the Egg Bowl. But what leverage do they have to say if Lane goes, I'm coaching the Egg Bowl? And he doesn't give them an answer on, yes, I'm leaving or whatever. The other part of this is damage control for the college football playoff. As we know, Ole Miss is fighting for a playoff spot. And if you put any stock into that Chris Lowe report that came out earlier this week saying he spoke with a former member of the College Football Playoff Committee, that Lane Kiffin not being at Ole Miss would have a huge impact on seeding and where they put Ole Miss in the playoff field. Remember, the whole thing is about getting the 12 best teams into the playoff. If one of those 12 best teams is missing their head coach, who, oh, by the way, has a huge hand in the offense and everything else, that would be a knock against Ole Miss, right, wrong, or indifferent. They did the same thing with Jordan Travis at Florida State a couple years ago. When Florida State lost Jordan Travis for the season, they were undefeated, having one of their best seasons ever. But the whole landscape changed. They said, we can't put them in. They don't have their starting quarterback. They're going to use that same, or at least this person seemed to think they would use the same reasoning for Ole Miss. Now, there's been some people that projected, okay, maybe they don't drop Ole Miss out of the playoff, but maybe they make them go on the road in round one instead of hosting a playoff game in Oxford. So there's some hypothesizing that Keith Carter saying a decision on Lane Kiffin's future is expected after the Egg Bowl next Saturday, that this is damage control to say, hey, hang around, show some stability, let's go win the Egg Bowl, and then you can do whatever the hell you want. We'll put an interim in here. We'll go off in the playoff. We'll try to win a championship without you. So that is a possibility. You know, the other part of it is what happens if they lose. And this is where I think there could be a lot of egg on the face of Keith Carter. No pun. Not trying to make a pun here. But if they leave Kiffin in place and Ole Miss loses this game, keep in mind, this is a much improved Mississippi State team. Jeff Lebby, there's been times this offense has looked really good. There's been times where the defense has been pretty decent, right? They got the big win over Arizona State earlier this year. Ole Miss will be a heavy favorite, don't get me wrong, but it is, you know, Mississippi State's got a chance. But if they leave Kiffin in place, and this thing is a jumbled mess next week, meaning they're going 3 and out. There's a bunch of, I don't know, just, in other words, does the distraction of Kiffin and all this lead to a poor result on the field? I think that could come back on Keith Carter and, like we said, have a lot of egg on his face and a lot of Ole Miss fans saying, you knew he was leaving. Why didn't you get his ass out before the Egg Bowl? So that is a whole nother angle on this. Just kind of catching up here because, again, this is you know, just coming out in the last hour. On 3, saying an announcement on Lane Kiffin's future is expected after the Egg Bowl. Pete Thamel, announcement on Lane Kiffin expected after the Egg Bowl. Pete Dacos, no decision yet. So, again, it's, you know, whatever you want to believe here. If you want to believe, the hard part to believe here, though, in all this drama, is that Lane Kiffin is going to come out of the Egg Bowl, and let's say they win the Egg Bowl, and let's say Ole Miss, let's say the players carry him off the field. Does that pull something inside of him? If he hadn't signed anything with LSU or Florida, does that invoke something in him that he goes, you know what, I've had a change of heart, and we're going to stay in Oxford? I don't know. Again, it seems like if he was staying in Oxford, that would have been announced. It just would have. Again, they don't have to sign him to a deal yet. They could have just said, we have the framework in place. And does it even make sense? Would Lane draw this out? I don't know. He's a weird cat sometimes. But would he draw this thing out and say, I'm going to wait until after the Egg Bowl to announce I'm staying in Oxford and we'll sign an extension? To me, that just feels like you've had 2 weeks to do that. So it does feel like the writing is on the wall that Lane Kiffin is gone, at least in my opinion. And the question becomes, is he going to LSU or Florida? We'll touch on that here coming up in just a second. More of a special edition Locked On SEC right after this. And first, I want to remind you about our friends over at Gametime. As you guys know, college football season is winding down. What are you doing this weekend or next weekend? If you want to get out and go catch a college football game, no better place to get your tickets than with the Gametime app. It is the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. You're going to pull up the Gametime app, and in just a couple of taps, you're going to see amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. And the Gametime app, they make it super simple. You can even see the exact seat, the view from your seat before you buy. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way you're going to buy tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, it's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, $20 off. It is swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, diving back into it as we are discussing the latest news on Lane Kiffin. Again, if you missed it, he and athletic director Keith Carter had a meeting on Friday with some of the higher-ups at Ole Miss, released a statement. Again, just to kind of reiterate this, despite the outside noise, Coach Kiffin is focused on preparing our team for the Egg Bowl, and we want to ensure our players and coaches can concentrate fully on the next game. we'll have an announcement on Coach Kiffin's future expected following the Saturday following the Egg Bowl. Keep in mind the Egg Bowl is this coming Friday. So it's only, it's a week from today, depending on what you're watching, it's Friday or Saturday. But so the question now is, okay, let's just assume, reading between the lines, that Lane Kiffin is moving on. Again, Ole Miss wanted clarity from Kiffin, and I just find it hard to believe in this meeting that he goes, look, I love it in Oxford. I want to stay here, guys. And they go, great, let's sign an extension. Because you know what? I really want to spend this next week focusing on the Egg Bowl. Why don't we talk numbers when this is over and we'll sign an extension after this? To me, that just seems very fishy. Why not do it now? It's, if that were the outcome, if he was staying in Oxford, Mississippi, it feels like that would have been announced. This vagueness, again, to me, says he told them, I'm either going to LSU or Florida. And Ole Miss said, rather than what they were preaching earlier in the week, at least what the messages were, was that they were going to say, well, you're not coaching in the Egg Bowl. Get the hell out of here. They realized the implications of this could hurt us in the playoff field. Let's have him hang around. You'll coach the Egg Bowl. After that, you can get lost, and we'll go into the college football playoff with Joe Judge as the interim. I don't know, whoever you want, Charlie Weiss Jr., Pete Golding, whoever you want to be the interim. But so the question is, will he go to LSU or Florida? Well, let's start with the Florida Gators. First, we know that officials from the Florida Athletic Department, including Scott Strickland, reportedly met with several representatives for Ole Miss for Coach Lane Kiffin a couple nights ago. The meeting took place at an undisclosed location that was not in Oxford, according to a report. And Kiffin, like we said, considered to be either if not their top target, LSU's top target, whatever, very high on both their lists. Of course, he said in recent weeks, I love it here at Ole Miss. We're in the greatest run that the school has ever had. Said that on the teleconference earlier this week. He said, it's amazing. I'm living in the moment. The players are too, and it's awesome to be a part of it. Well, according to Swamp 24/7's report, Lane Kiffin's ex-wife, Layla, who, again, don't want to get too much into the personal business, but apparently they've reconciled. They're back together, whatever. And their son, Knox, they reportedly toured Gainesville last weekend. And that visit included a meeting at Buckholz High School with their head coach, Mark Whitmore. Knox is a 2028 quarterback prospect who currently attends Oxford High, has several offers already. I think somebody told me that he has a playoff game tonight or something like that, has a football game tonight. So regardless, but Kiffin coached in the state of Florida when he was head coach at FAU. His family does have ties to Florida. So again, a lot of people have viewed them very much in the picture here. In fact, some Florida people I talked to about a week ago thought he's coming to Florida. They thought that was a done deal. Well, in the last week, it feels like LSU has picked up a lot of momentum. And talking with some folks in Baton Rouge, they seem to think it's the other way. They think that Lane Kiffin has basically told LSU that he's coming. Now, here's the funny part. There's a world where Lane Kiffin maybe told both Florida and LSU he's coming and just wants to make it a bidding war. And, hey, who's going to give me the most resources, the most money, make me the highest paid coach of college football, give me the biggest NIL pool, whatever the case. He can ask for the world for both LSU and Florida. And the question is, who blinks first? So, again, Kiffin, earlier, yesterday, there was a couple of the big sports books out there. They vaulted him to be the favorite for the LSU head coach. And then, of course, the story comes out on Thursday night that from Matt Zenitz at 24/7 Sports that, Coach O could potentially join Lane Kiffin's staff at LSU if, is there a reunion in the cards there? Well, the way Matt Zenitz phrased it, he put if/when he goes to LSU. So, the phrasing of the question or the tweet should have been if he takes the LSU job, Coach O could join him. But he said if/when. If/when insinuates, well, when he takes the job, that it's going to happen. So, again, don't want to play semantics with Matt Zenitz and his Twitter, but that's kind of what people said, reading between the lines. And again, the good news is if you're an LSU fan and you like Coach O and you like the idea of him being back on staff, because he's a big-time recruiter, and whether it's a D-line coach, a DC, whatever, I think a lot of LSU fans would like that. And look, if you're Lane Kiffin, you like the idea, too, of Frank Wilson, who's the interim. Why don't you keep him? He's a great recruiter. Corey Raymond, who came back to be the DB's coach, pretty darn good. He got Mansour Delane. Looks like he's going to be a first-round pick at, in this year's upcoming draft. Coach O, obviously a big-time recruiter. And then there was the report that came out that Nick Saban gave Lane Kiffin his blessing. Hey, Nick, or hey, Lane, if you want to take that job, I want a championship there, man. I helped build that program back from the bottom up when I was there in the early 2000s. Again, I keep reminding people, Nick Saban is also receiving a paycheck every month from Alabama. I don't know why it doesn't help Alabama to say, hey, Lane, you're a damn good coach winning 10 games a year at Ole Miss. Why don't you go over to LSU where they have even more resources and fertile recruiting and all that stuff? Like, to me, that hurts Alabama if Lane Kiffin's over there. I get it. Some Alabama fans may say, the hell with Lane Kiffin, the hell with LSU. We've been beating them like crazy in recent years. We don't care. Okay, that's fine. Just saying there's the potential there that LSU gets better with Lane Kiffin as the head coach. So now it becomes a situation of, if LSU is indeed in the driver's seat, can they keep this quiet? If there's people behind the scenes that know about this. And the other part is they're also paying this big, massive buyout to Brian Kelly. This is a lot of money LSU is going to have to come up with, because it's a world where you're paying Brian Kelly a massive buyout to go away, and you're, in a dogfight with him over that money. And then on top of it, to get Lane Kiffin, you're paying him top dollar, making him one of, if not the highest paid coach in college football. On the flip side, you may ask yourself, if you're an LSU fan, is this the best hire we can make? There's other names that have been floated out there, Eli Drinkwitz, among others. And, Lane has not, made the playoffs prior to this. Presumably, Ole Miss is going to make it this year. But he's not won a championship as a head coach. And you're going to be paying him more than guys who have won national championships as a head coach. You're going to be paying him more than Dabo Swinney. You're going to be paying him more than Ryan Day. You're going to be paying him more than Kirby Smart, who's got a couple of championships to his credit. And that just feels weird to pay a guy that much money to say, hey, you're going to be the highest paid head coach in college football, and you have not had great success yet winning a national championship. So let's take a look at what the latest odds were. This was as of a couple weeks ago. This has been changed, obviously, but at the time when we put together this graphic, Nick Saban was the favorite to be the head coach at LSU. I think we can kind of take his name out of the picture there. Lane Kiffin was the second best odds, followed by Joe Brady, Clark Lee, Dan Lanning, James Franklin. Obviously, James Franklin's taking the Virginia Tech job. So that's where it was a couple weeks ago. And then at that same time, Florida, Lane Kiffin was minus 300 at the time when these odds were first put out there to be the next Florida head coach, followed by Eli Drinkwitz. So just to let you know, again, those odds have changed. Now it's Lane Kiffin is the favorite to be the head coach at LSU. But I'm sure if there were odds out right now with Florida, I would still have him somewhere near the top, because it still is very much a 50-50 possibility that he could end up at Florida. He could end up at LSU. So again, this whole thing, it sucks that it feels like we're going to have to wait a whole nother week of this to go through and, without some resolution. The hope is, and look, I hate rats. I hate people who, run their mouths and all this, but this feels like a situation that it might be good for, a lot of parties involved if it did leak out that he is indeed going to LSU, or he is indeed going to Florida. Now, probably not good for Ole Miss. Again, they're trying to keep all this under wraps to say, let's win this last game and let's get in. But I think even if Ole Miss wins this game and they finish 11-1, the committee cannot then knock them all the way down. Like, if you're on an 11-1 Ole Miss team, you cannot make them go on the road and convince me that losing Lane Kiffin is the move that, this takes them out of it. They're no longer a top 6, top 8 team in the country. Like, no, to me, I would argue that that's absolutely ridiculous. Now, there is the case they lose the Mississippi State, they lose the Egg Bowl, and they're 10-2, and you lose Lane Kiffin. That's where the committee's going to have a real case of, all right, there's some other more deserving, 10-2 teams out there. And, Vanderbilt might be in the conversation if they beat Kentucky and Tennessee these last 2 weeks, but Ole Miss will have some, I think you're going to start looking at resumes and saying, all right, what's their best resume win, and that sort of thing. So there is one more wrinkle here that if you weren't paying attention, and Lane Kiffin has not slowed down on his social media. Pete Nakos on Friday and on 3 revealed that in the midst of all this, Lane Kiffin on his Twitter retweeted a post highlighting Rebels safety Wyatt Williams as the highest graded player at his position in the SEC, and Kiffin added the hashtag come to the SIP. So, some people looking at that going, all right, if he's 1 foot out the door and he's leaving, why is he still recruiting? Why is he still saying hashtag come to the SIP and trying to get kids to come play there? So, But again, you can make the argument he is still technically the Ole Miss head coach right now. And unless he wants to get called on the carpet by Ole Miss Brasco and saying you weren't fully committed up to the last minute, he could say, the hell I wasn't. I was tweeting out, come to the SIP. I was still trying to put together this great recruiting class for you guys. So again, just a lot to still be determined in there. All right, when we return, we'll hit on a couple of SEC nuggets heading into the weekend before we call it a show right here on Locked On SEC. Hey, quick minute here for our friends over at FanDuel. We've been telling you guys about them for a while now. And of course, if you have never bet with them, no better place to get in on the action this weekend than with FanDuel. They're also the official sports betting partner of the NBA. But taking a look at some of the betting lines happening this weekend, I like some of those SEC games where you can get a live underdog. And the one I'm staring at is Florida at home against Tennessee. I get it. Tennessee is a good team. They're ranked. Florida is 3-7, but the Gators, they have beaten Tennessee in the swamp for 20 plus years. There's just something about it. Look, if you ask me to pick the game, I would say I think Tennessee finally gets off the snide and wins in the swamp. But if you're putting some money on it, why not take the Florida Gators straight up, 3.5-point underdog? You can take the money line if you want, but it's only 3.5. I would just take them straight up as the dog to win straight up. So that's where I would go. If I was picking another one, maybe, look, I don't think Mizzou, even with Bo Perbula, has a chance going into Oklahoma. But if you think Ahmad Hardy can run wild, maybe there's a chance there. And then maybe throw a couple dimes on Kentucky at Vanderbilt. Maybe there's a chance they could pull off that upset straight up and ruin Vanderbilt's season. Look, Kentucky's been playing much better the last couple weeks. Keeps every game exciting over at FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just go to FanDuel.com right now. Sign up and play your game with FanDuel. And like I said, they are the official sports betting partner of the NBA, FanDuel.com. All right, just a couple of SEC tidbits before we call it a show here. I did want to pass along Bo Perbula, his injury status revealed for the game coming up at Oklahoma. He is on track to return to the lineup, according to multiple reports. We talked about that on today's show earlier. A report from ESPN's Pete Thamel says Bo Perbula, quote, looked good in practice on Friday and is indeed in line to start for the Tigers as they go to Oklahoma. Perbula was medically cleared to play this week, and he was upgraded from questionable on the team's injury report this week. Upgraded to questionable, we should say, is what it was on the injury report. And he was not played since injuring his ankle back on October 25th in a loss to Vanderbilt. Matt Zollers has started the last couple of games. And obviously, look, they rolled to a win over Mississippi State last weekend, but a big reason why Ahmad Hardy rushing for 300 yards, that had a big part of it. But if they're going to win at Oklahoma, Hardy and the run game have to produce, obviously, but also it wouldn't hurt to have Bo Perbula in there, the guy who was your starter for the start of the year and a little bit more older and possibly a little bit more poised than a Matt Zollers would be in that environment. So, again, Mizzou's got a chance with Perbula back on the field in that one. A note over at Texas A&M. Of course, Mike Elko just locked in his extension with A&M just a week ago. That news came out last Saturday morning before they fell behind 30-3 to South Carolina. And then, of course, later rallied in the second half and came back to win that game. Biggest comeback in the history of A&M. Well, how about their athletic director who got the deal done, Trev Alberts? He has signed a contract extension. A&M announcing on Friday afternoon they have signed AD Trev Alberts to a 6-year contract extension. The new deal will keep Alberts in College Station through 2031. He joined the school back in 24 after spending several seasons at Nebraska. And while he wasn't the man who hired Mike Elko, he has been here with this historic rise of the football program. And so is that Trev Alberts helping, facilitate more NIL dollars or whatever it is, giving Mike Elko the support he needs for this success? Mike Elko saying in a statement, we're building something special here at A&M, and my partnership with Trev is an integral part of that. Alberts has overseen 2 national championships during his tenure with the Aggies. The women's tennis program claimed their first in program history in 2024, and then the men's outdoor track and field program won their 5th outdoor title in 2025. A&M also has won 4 SEC championships under Alberts, with women's tennis winning in 24 and 25, men's indoor track winning in 25, and softball winning the SEC tournament crown in 25. Of course, the baseball program also played for a national championship in 2024, but they're hoping to get that one in football. That one would certainly help, the case for Trev Alberts being, getting this big time extension and being as highly paid as he is. If they can add a football SEC championship, I'm sure Mike Elko would love to do that. All right, that is where we'll leave it here, guys. Again, the latest on the Lane Kiffin situation is we still don't know. I mean, it's I said, hopefully, we get 7 more days of this, and I don't know where this is going to lead to. Somebody on social media said the past few weeks have been so much fun. Why not? Let's let this thing run another week. And that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to get to the Egg Bowl on Friday, and maybe an announcement on Saturday of next Saturday of what Lane Kiffin's future is. And like I said, maybe something will leak out in the next, 5, 6, 7 days, and we'll have more of a resolution on where Lane Kiffin is going to be headed. But that's going to do it for this special edition of Locked On SEC. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. I'll be back on Monday to talk with you guys. We'll recap the weekend. Unless something else breaks, we'll come back and do a special show for you guys. But have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you guys then.